Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you something. What if the version of you that's tired, distracted, overwhelmed, isn't actually you? What if that's just a pattern, a program, a loop that your body has memorized, and your mind just keeps rehearsing? Now, what if I told you that you could break that loop, and by doing so you wouldn't just feel better, you'd live longer. You'd become someone new. See the way most of us live? It's survival mode. Wake up, repeat the past. Same thoughts, same feelings, same reactions. We call it a normal. But that's not normal. It's predictable. And predictability is the slow death of vitality. Here's what most people don't know. The body doesn't just age because of time. It ages because of stress. Chronic, unrelenting stress. And stress isn't about what's happening out there. It's about how you respond to it. It's about the chemistry you keep creating inside of you, on autopilot. Your thoughts are electrical. Your emotions are magnetic. Together they broadcast a field, and your body is always listening. So when you wake up thinking yesterday's thoughts, feeling yesterday's emotions, you're signaling your biology to stay in the past. But what if, for 26 minutes a day, you stopped being your past? What if you sat in stillness, slowed your breath, felt the feeling of gratitude before there was anything to be grateful for? Felt the joy of being alive, even if nothing had changed? Do you know what would happen? Your brain waves would slow down. Your heart would come into rhythm. Your nervous system would shift from survival to creation. And your body would begin to heal. Not in theory, in real time. Because when you change your inner state, your outer world must follow. That's not magic. That's biology. In just 26 minutes, you could move out of fight or flight, and into flow. Come on. You could step into the future you, the one that's clear, calm, creative, the one who doesn't need to wait for life to be perfect before they feel whole. Do that every day. Your hormones rebalance, your inflammation drops, your immune system strengthens, your mind sharpens, your energy rises. And time, biological time, starts to reverse. This isn't about fixing yourself. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. It's about teaching your body what the future feels like, so it can begin to live it now. Just 26 minutes to unplug from the past. To unplug from the past, to condition the heart, to rewire the brain, to align with something greater. And when you do that, you won't just add 10 years to your life. You'll finally start living the years you already have. Coherence is the alignment between the heart, the brain, and the body, a state where all systems are working in rhythm, in unity, in harmony. It's measurable, it's real, and it's powerful. When you enter coherence, your heart rate variability becomes smooth and ordered, your brain waves begin to synchronize, and your nervous system shifts from chaos to clarity. Most people live in the opposite of coherence: constant stress, scattered thoughts, reactive emotions. That's called incoherence. And the body cannot heal, create, or thrive in that state because it believes it's under threat. In incoherence, the heart sends erratic signals to the brain, which then responds with anxiety, confusion, and more stress chemistry. That stress keeps the system in a loop, producing cortisol, adrenaline, and other hormones that over time break the body down. But coherence is the antidote. It's the signal to your biology that you are safe, that you're not just surviving, you're living consciously. The heart is more than a muscle pumping blood. It's an intelligence center with its own neural network, capable of sending more information to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. When you breathe slowly, evenly, and combine that breath with elevated emotions, like gratitude, appreciation, or love, you bring your heart into coherence. That rhythm then influences the brain, calming the mind, improving cognition, and shifting the body into a parasympathetic state. This is where healing begins. This is where inspiration happens. This is where creativity flows. You don't need to wait for life to be perfect to create coherence. You create it first, and life begins to respond. With just a few minutes of conscious breathing and emotional elevation, you can bring the whole body into balance. You can train your system to prefer harmony over survival. Over time, your baseline changes. You're no longer controlled by external chaos. You become centered, empowered, and deeply connected to something greater than the moment or the circumstance. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to change and adapt, not just in childhood, but throughout your entire life. Every experience you have, every thought you think, every emotion you feel, those are inputs that shape the structure and wiring of your brain. The brain isn't fixed. It's not hardwired. It's constantly reorganizing itself based on what you focus on and what you repeat. If you wake up every day and think the same thoughts, feel the same emotions, and perform the same habits, your brain simply keeps reinforcing the same neural circuits. Repetition becomes your identity, your personality, your perception of reality. And for most people, that reality is based entirely on the past. But when you introduce something new, when you consciously choose a different thought, imagine a different outcome, feel an emotion that doesn't match your current environment, you begin to create new neural pathways. The brain starts firing in unfamiliar patterns. That's the first step of change. At first, it's uncomfortable because the body wants to go back to what's familiar, even if that familiar is stress, worry, or self-doubt. But if you stay with the new pattern, if you reinforce it with attention and emotion, the connections become stronger. Eventually, those new patterns become the default. This is how you rewire your mind to support the future instead of replaying the past. The process requires awareness. You must become so familiar with your unconscious thoughts that you catch them before they run the show. You must become so tuned into how you feel that you notice when you're being pulled back into an old emotional state. And in that moment, you make a new choice, a new thought, a new emotion. That's how you interrupt the loop. That's how you reshape the brain. With repetition and intention, the chemistry of your body starts to change. The signals you send to your cells begin to reflect a different future. You're no longer defined by old memories. You're defined by your vision. Your brain becomes a map of possibility instead of a record of the past. To rewire is to change the way your brain automatically responds to life. Most people don't realize it, but their thoughts, emotions, and behaviors are memorized patterns, deeply ingrained through repetition. These patterns become circuits in the brain, firing the same way over and over again until they become automatic. That's why you can wake up and immediately feel anxious, or why one small trigger can launch a spiral of anger or sadness. You're not choosing those reactions consciously. They're wired into your nervous system. Rewiring means becoming conscious of those programs, stepping outside of them, and installing new ones. The moment you observe yourself reacting from an old emotion, you're no longer unconscious, you're aware. And that awareness is the beginning of change. When you recognize an old thought and decide not to believe it, or notice a familiar emotional reaction, and choose to feel something elevated instead, you begin to prune away the old neural connection. You literally stop feeding that pathway. And with each choice to think, feel, or act differently, you forge a new connection. The brain doesn't care whether what you imagine is real or not. It will wire whatever you focus on with enough energy and repetition. So if you keep imagining your future with clarity, feeling the emotions of that future in the present, and practicing that state of being, you begin to install a new program. Rewiring isn't about pretending or forcing positivity. It's about signaling to your biology that something new is happening, that you are no longer the person who lives from old wounds, fear, or doubt. It's about becoming so familiar with your future self that it starts to feel more real than your past. And the more you fire those new circuits, the more your brain changes. Your personality shifts, your perception evolves. You start responding differently to life, not because you're trying, but because the program has changed. Your body no longer defaults to stress. Your thoughts no longer spiral into limitation. You've trained your brain to expect something greater, and in doing so, you make space for it to arrive. Survival is the state most people unconsciously live in every day. It's a program built into the body to keep us alive, not to help us thrive. It was designed for short bursts, when danger was immediate, when running or fighting was necessary. In those moments, the body releases adrenaline and cortisol, focuses all energy outward, and prepares to defend itself. That mechanism is intelligent. But the problem is, in the modern world, most people never leave that state. They wake up thinking about yesterday's problems, anticipating today's stressors, and bracing for tomorrow's uncertainty. That constant anticipation of threat tells the body it's still in danger. So the survival chemicals never turn off. When you're in survival, your attention is narrowed. You focus on the external world, on time, on your body. You become hyper-aware of your environment, always scanning for what might go wrong. The internal world, the space of intuition, creativity, healing, gets shut down. In this state, you can't access higher levels of consciousness. You can't think clearly because the brain is in high beta, the frequency of anxiety and urgency. You can't digest properly, repair tissue, or sleep deeply because the body doesn't prioritize health while it believes it's under threat. Survival mode also reinforces the sense of separation. You feel isolated, disconnected from others, from possibility, from your own inner intelligence. The longer you stay in that state, the more it becomes a baseline. You forget what peace feels like. You lose access to the present moment. And when you live your life from the hormones of stress, you keep creating the same experiences. You're no longer responding to life. You're reacting to a memory of danger that doesn't even exist anymore. The moment you shift out of survival, even for a few minutes, everything begins to change. Your heart rate slows. Your breath deepens. The chemistry in your blood transforms. You begin to move from reaction to creation, from fear to trust, from contraction to expansion. That shift doesn't just feel good. It becomes the foundation for a new way of living. Frequency is the invisible force that shapes our experience of reality. Everything in the universe vibrates at a certain frequency, including you. The thoughts you think, the emotions you feel, and the energy you carry, these all emit frequencies that influence your state of being. Your brain, your heart, and your body are constantly interacting with these frequencies, both internal and external. When you focus on fear, anxiety, or worry, you're tuning yourself into lower frequencies, frequencies that pull you into a state of contraction. You become stuck in a survival mode, trapped by the weight of those vibrations. But when you choose higher emotions, gratitude, joy, love, peace, you begin to resonate at a higher frequency. That shift doesn't just change how you feel, it changes the reality around you. The body is an amplifier. When you experience elevated emotions, those frequencies ripple through your cells, creating coherence. The heart and the brain begin to synchronize, and the body moves into a state of healing, of expansion. When your energy is aligned with positive emotions, you attract experiences that match that frequency. This is not just a law of attraction, it's quantum physics. At a quantum level, everything is energy. The more you hold yourself in a high frequency, the more you will draw in opportunities, people, and circumstances that resonate with that energy. However, shifting your frequency is a conscious choice. It's not something that happens passively. In fact, you have to work against the pull of old patterns. The tendency of your brain is to revert back to what's familiar. The same thoughts, the same emotional responses. But the moment you decide to tune your frequency higher, you begin to break those old patterns. You create new neural connections, new emotional responses, and new experiences. Your frequency becomes your greatest tool for transformation. As you elevate your energy, you don't just improve your own life. You begin to influence everything around you. The world responds to the energy you put out. And when you raise your frequency, the world becomes a more abundant, more harmonious place. Alignment is the process of bringing your mind, body, and emotions into harmony with your higher self, your purpose, and the life you wish to create. Most people live out of alignment, unknowingly following the patterns and programming they inherited or absorbed from the world around them. These patterns aren't necessarily bad, but they often come from past experiences, limiting beliefs, and unconscious habits that do not serve the highest expression of who we truly are. When you live out of alignment, your thoughts are fragmented, your emotions are reactive, and your body is often in a state of dis-ease. There's a disconnection between what you say you want and the way you feel and act. Alignment is about tuning your internal systems to the highest version of yourself. It's about bringing your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions into coherence with your desires. This isn't something that happens by accident. It requires conscious effort, presence, and the willingness to break free from old habits. When you align with your true potential, everything shifts. Your thoughts become focused and clear. Your emotions become intentional, and your actions are inspired by the future you are creating rather than the past you are trying to avoid. This state of alignment affects every part of your life. When your mind, body, and spirit are aligned, you begin to feel more energized, more peaceful, and more connected. You start making better decisions because you are no longer acting out of fear, frustration, or reaction. Instead, you are acting from a place of clarity and purpose. Your body also responds to alignment by healing, relaxing, and returning to balance. The stress hormones that were once a constant in your life begin to dissipate, replaced by the healing chemicals of well-being. like oxytocin and serotonin. The beauty of alignment is that it's not about perfection. It's about intention. It's about choosing to realign yourself every time you fall off track. Every time you become aware that your thoughts and feelings are out of sync with your highest self, you can make the conscious choice to return to a state of alignment. And in doing so, you begin to create the life you've always desired. Elevation is the practice of raising your emotional state to a higher frequency, beyond the habitual reactions and conditioned patterns that often govern our lives. Most people are stuck in a loop of emotional patterns formed by past experiences. They operate from fear, anger, frustration, or even apathy without realizing it. These lower emotional states limit the potential of the body, mind, and spirit. They keep you locked into old, predictable cycles of thinking and behaving that do not serve the greatest version of yourself. Elevation is the key to breaking free from these patterns, to stepping into a higher version of who you are. When you elevate your emotions, you literally change the energy you're emitting. Your emotional state directly affects your energy field, which influences everything around you. The heart generates an electromagnetic field that can extend several feet beyond the body. If you're constantly holding negative emotions, that field is chaotic and disorganized. But when you elevate your emotional state, through gratitude, love, joy, or inspiration, you harmonize that field. You create coherence within your body and your energy field, and this coherence allows for greater access to higher levels of consciousness and creativity. Emotions like gratitude and love are not just positive feelings, they are transformative frequencies. They have the ability to change your biology, recalibrate your nervous system, and even rewire your brain. When you choose to elevate your emotions, you shift from a survival state into a state of creation. In that state, you're no longer reacting to life, you're actively shaping it. Elevated emotions signal to the body that it is safe to thrive, to heal, to grow. They remove the resistance that blocks the flow of energy and potential. It takes practice to stay in elevated emotions, especially when life around you seems chaotic or challenging. But this practice is what leads to the transformation you desire. The more consistently you elevate your emotional state, the more you will shift your energy, your mindset, and your life. As you elevate, you rise above the limitations of your past and begin to live from a place of infinite possibility. Consciousness is the awareness of the space you're in, the thoughts you think, the emotions you feel, and the energy you emit. It's the awareness that you are not just your body, your mind, or your circumstances, but something much greater, an infinite, expansive field of possibility. Most people operate on autopilot, unaware of the thoughts and emotions that are running their lives. Their consciousness is locked in the past, replaying memories and experiences, which causes them to live in a repetitive cycle. They identify themselves as their thoughts, their roles, or their histories. They believe they are simply reacting to the world around them, rather than realizing they can shape their reality by becoming conscious of their inner world. When you raise your consciousness, you begin to step out of the programmed reactions of the past and into the creative power of the present moment. You realize that the external world doesn't control you. It's your thoughts and emotions that shape your experience of the world. Consciousness is the gateway to this understanding. It's about being fully aware of what you're thinking and feeling and how those thoughts and feelings create your reality. When you are conscious, you can choose a different thought, a different emotional state, or a different response. You stop being a victim of your circumstances and you start becoming the creator of your life. Expanding your consciousness also means becoming aware of the infinite field of energy around you. It means knowing that you are not just a physical body moving through time and space, but an energetic being that is interconnected with everything. When you tap into this higher consciousness, you access a broader perspective, one that allows you to see beyond the limitations of your current reality. You begin to understand that your thoughts and emotions are energy, and when you change the quality of your inner state, you change the energy that flows through you. This shift in consciousness aligns you with the present moment, where the infinite potential of the universe is waiting to be tapped into. Regulation is the process of bringing balance and harmony back to your system. It's about taking control of your thoughts, emotions, and physiological responses so that you can consciously create the life you desire. Most people go through life on autopilot, reacting to external circumstances, letting their emotions dictate their behavior, and being tossed around by the stresses of daily life. In these moments, the body is in a constant state of imbalance, where the nervous system is either in a heightened state of fight or flight, or numbed by a lack of emotional engagement. When the body is in this state of dysregulation, it's not capable of healing, growing, or functioning at its highest potential. The key to regulation is learning how to bring yourself into a state of balance by shifting your emotional and mental states at will. The most effective way to do this is by mastering your breath, your thoughts, and your emotional responses. Breathing techniques like deep, slow breaths activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which promotes relaxation and healing. When you begin to take control of your breath, you send signals to your body that it's safe to relax, to let go of tension, and to let the body heal. Alongside controlled breathing, you also need to become aware of your thoughts and emotions. Our thoughts often drive our emotional states, which then influence our physical bodies. If you're thinking about stress, fear, or negativity, your body will reflect those thoughts by releasing stress hormones, causing tension and discomfort. However, when you regulate your thoughts and emotions, by consciously choosing to think about gratitude, peace, and love, you begin to release different chemicals, such as oxytocin and serotonin, which create a sense of well-being and peace. The more you practice regulation, the more your body becomes accustomed to living in a state of balance. Over time, this practice becomes second nature, and you find that your body no longer reacts out of fear, but responds to life from a place of calm, clarity, and confidence. Regulation is the key to returning to your natural state of health and vitality. Transformation is the process of moving from one state of being to another, from a limited version of yourself to a greater expression of who you truly are. It's not just about changing your external circumstances or acquiring new material things. It's about a fundamental shift in consciousness, in the way you perceive yourself and the world around you. Most people resist transformation because it requires them to let go of the familiar. The patterns they have built their lives on, the same thoughts, beliefs, habits, and emotional responses have become comfortable, even though they no longer serve them. To transform, you must be willing to step into the unknown, to release the old and embrace a new way of thinking, feeling, and being. Transformation begins with awareness. When you start to become aware of the thoughts that limit you, the emotions that keep you stuck, and the beliefs that shape your reality, you begin to see that you are not your past. You are not your mistakes or your struggles. You are not the person who was hurt or rejected, the person who failed or feared. Awareness allows you to see beyond the surface of your experiences and recognize that you have the power to change your internal state, and in doing so, you change your reality. The next step in transformation is to consciously choose a new path. It's not enough to simply know that change is possible. You must actively engage in the process of becoming the person you desire to be. This requires consistent effort to think differently, feel differently, and act differently. It's about retraining your brain and reprogramming your nervous system to support the highest version of yourself. The more you practice this, the more you begin to create new neural connections, new emotional responses, and new experiences that align with your vision for the future. Transformation is not an event. It's a process. It's a journey of continuous growth, of stepping into new versions of yourself over and over again. Each time you overcome an old pattern, you elevate to a new level of consciousness and potential. The more you embrace this process, the more you'll find yourself living a life that feels aligned, purposeful, and full of possibility.